Good afternoon, panelists. I want to be sure all my panelists are here. If you are one of the panelists and you are, please kindly raise up your hands. I want to be sure we can start now. Right? Sit. Once. Okay. Okay. That's 5. So expect the other panelists. Okay. All right, perhaps we can start while we wait for the other panelists to join us. Let me see that we have now. See Mr. Gbenga Sheson. I can see Madam Ojurayo Ogunlana-Okanga. So we are still waiting on Adaura Ikede and Dr. Femi Adeluyi. Can you hear me, please? Am I audible enough?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, fantastic, excellent. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. All right, okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Our protocols duly observed. My name is Engineer Kunle Olorundare. I am a senior member of Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineer, USA, and I double as the current Vice President of Internet Society Nigerian Chapter. For this session, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I believe we're going to have a wonderful session. And without wasting time, we are going to start this session now. And the first thing on the agenda is for us to meet our panelists. I will be giving the floor to our panelists to introduce themselves. I would like to start with the lead paper presenter, that is Sheson. Please have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olorundare. Gbenga Sheson is the name. I work with Paradigm Initiative. It's great to be here.
Right. Permit me to Gbenga Sheson is the executive an African social enterprise working on Nigeria, Niger, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. At the Digital Society Lab at University. Gbenga Lagos Digital Project of Junior Achievement of Nigeria. Gbenga as part of the Presidential Committee sectors. That was in 2006. Of facilitated universal broadband and services provision. That was by CNN as one of the top by Ventures Africa. Thank you very much, Gbenga Sheson. So without to do our face and introduce herself.
Mr. Kunle, did you mention my name?
No.
Oh God, I can't. Oh yes, I see my my picture. Okay, so I couldn't hear you very well.
Okay.
What did you say before?
Through your station. Thank you.
Wow. I can't hear you.
Okay, all right. Let's go through your citation while your picture is up. Mojirayo Ogunlana Nkanga is a legal practitioner, the principal for MON Legal, a law firm based in Abuja, Nigeria. She specializes in human freedom, digital and offline media, as well as Madam Mojirayo Ogunlana. You are welcome. Can you hear me now?
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. All right. Next on the panelist is Mr. John. Can we see your face? I saying good afternoon. After we go through your citation.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. All right. John holds a degree in electrical and electronics engineering from Federal University of Technology, Owerri. He is a member of several cybersecurity and assurance professional bodies like ISACA, ISU, and FIRST, and ISO 2231 Business Continuity Management System, lead auditor, a certified information security manager, certified information systems auditor. He joined KP in 2000 and has extensive experience providing best-in-class IT advisory to clients across various. Mr. John, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on this platform.
Thank you very much.
The next panelist is Mr. Adam Adaura. Adaura, you have the. Adaura, can you say hello to us? I want to be sure you are hearing. Madam Adaura. Okay, all right. While we are waiting for Madam, can we Dr. Femi Adelui? Can you say to us, please?
Yes. How are you doing?
Right. Fine, thank you.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
No, I can't. Now, oh, right. Dr. Femi Adelu is from Chosun University of Korea.
On the
information technology. Right. I will give you time to introduce her.
No problem.
That. All right. It focuses of information technology, enhanced healthcare delivery in ways are reliable, reusable, cost-effective, and innovative. It aims to use techniques like parallel computing, reconfiguration, virtual instrumentation, and inspired computing to particularly in areas of personalized health monitoring, bioinformatics, the Internet of Things, and big data analytics. Dr. Femi, please, can you add one or two things to that? Since you said that is obsolete.
No, well,
Dr.
not
Femi.
obsolete. Things are additive. So right now I work as a technical assistant to the Minister on IT. So this was my profile just after I finished my PhD in South Korea. So you're still in order, but just to add that, because that's the role I'm playing on this platform and this session. Thank you.
That's to your cap. Well done. All right. Okay. Kinsey now. She's with she has the floor. Madam Madaura. Okay. Okay, Madam Madaura, are you with us now? Okay, all right. When she joins us, I'm going to introduce her. While we would like to listen to the lead paper presenter, that is Gbenga. Mr. Gbenga Sheson, you have much.
Thank you, Mr. Olorundare. I couldn't make out some of the things you said towards the end, but I think you asked me to go ahead to speak. If I'm not in order, please kindly correct me.
The late paper, can you paper? Mr.
Okay, yes, I just said that now. I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead. Okay. All right. Thank you. We've actually lost some time, and I see you didn't get my message. I was asking that maybe we should skip the introduction so that we can go into the heart of the debate and conversation for this afternoon. But I will try to keep this as short as possible so that we can have a robust conversation. I'm sure that my colleagues will do justice to this conversation. But I think I should start, and I shared this in the larger room earlier. I think it's ironic having a conversation about making the internet work for all, and we're discussing policy and regulation while the country where we're discussing this issue is currently experiencing network disruptions, in various formats, including the famous shutdown of Twitter in Nigeria. And when I say this, I do not speak for the company, but I speak for the users of the platform, and I speak for myself also as a user. And I speak for the fact that, the instruction of government to telecom companies to restrict or to suspend Twitter in Nigeria did not even conform to the laws of Nigeria through, a legal notice. And I'm glad, by the way, that this has been met with some form of judicial, resistance. The ECOWAS court ruled yesterday that it would declare whether it is illegal or not, January 20 next year. That's a long time away, but local courts in Nigeria will discuss this on October 25. And I think as we discuss policy and regulation, it's important to realize that in a multi-stakeholder environment, it means that we've got government, we've got civil society, we've got private sector, we've got the academia, we've got the media, we've got various stakeholders. And I think it's extremely important for us to realize that when we have conversations and when we take action around policy and regulation, while policy and regulation is a task that has been primarily delegated, and mark my, note the word I use, delegated to government. It is delegated to government on behalf of the entire stakeholders, within the space. And the role of policy and regulation really should be to improve, livelihoods and to support innovation. not to stifle them. And I can give many examples, but I'll restrict myself to the tech, to the ICT space, and say that in the last few weeks, in the last few months, we've seen a lot of great news for Nigeria. Just a few days ago, another company that started in Nigeria became a unicorn, which means it's worth about $1 billion. It's actually worth $1.5 billion. And that is great news. But unfortunately, policy and regulation in Nigeria seem to be catching up with innovation, as with many other places in the world. But not only is policy and regulation catching up, they are also stifling the actions that we've seen from the CBN, for example, are things that I would have expected the Communications and Digital Economy Ministry to, to give them feedback on that. You know what? If we're truly building a digital economy, we should not be talking about banning technology in the sense of, saying that it is regulation. It is, quite interesting that the same technology that the CBN had spoken against for people to use is now what's behind the e-Naira that will be launched tomorrow. But that's good news, by the way. That's really great news that instead of fighting technology with policy and regulation, we're now embracing it. I won't do justice to this topic without saying there are two, I think, important policy documents that Nigeria needs to pay attention to, amongst others. Right now. The first is the data protection bill. Yes, I know there's a data protection bill going through the House. Actually, there are two data protection bills, but there is a recent draft that has been worked, on by various stakeholders, all stakeholders, unlike the kind of bills that get presented in the House just simply because someone drafted it or because someone took it from the web, from a website and changed, rupees to Naira and, Mumbai to Lagos. In this case, it was drafted, it was vetted, and it is my surprise that we're not paying as much attention to this, bill in order to establish an independent institution, a data protection authority that can, address all of the issues we have about data abuse and such impunity, around those practices in Nigeria. The other is, and of course, I declare, upfront my self-interest in this, but it is enlightened self-interest. I have nothing to gain from this bill apart from just improving the nation for myself, my wife, and my kids. It is the Digital Rights and Freedom Bill, which unfortunately wasn't signed by the president when he came to him in May 2019. And one of the reasons was because he asked that the data protection component of the bill be removed. And now there are now these two bills. Digital rights and digital rights and freedom bill and the data protection bill. It will be great for us to make progress on this particular bills. And I also want to very quickly speak to the independence of institutions. When we discuss policy and regulation, one of the mistakes we are making in Nigeria is that we have turned policy into one-man action. We literally have a scenario where institutions that should be independent, and I will name names. I mean, folks on the call probably know that I do this already. NITA, NCC, NIMC, and other agencies. Yes, there is a relationship with the ministry, but the NCC, for example, is by law supposed to be an independent agency. But when a minister has to approve a policy before it goes on to become regulation as an individual, then there is a problem. And I think that if there's anything we need to have, to have better conversations about, it is the independence of institutions. I've been heard talking about the fact that we're literally turning this into an emperor lapdog scenario. And I think it doesn't help us as a country, because if we continue to have a scenario where ministries or agents cannot take action, that improves the work they've been asked to do because they do not want to be seen as falling out with someone, then we're just going to get ourselves into a scenario of sycophancy, which of course doesn't help anybody, with competence. But having said that, I am glad that today we're hosting the NIGF, and the IGF, thankfully, is not one of those talk shops where it is government inviting others to come and listen to them, spill all the things Yeah, but it's a conversation among multi stakeholders, a conversation between private sector, government, civil society, and every other sector of the economy. And I think it's great news that we're having this conversation. But my hope is that between now and the next IGF that we host in Nigeria, we're not going to go back to our bad habits. And when I say bad habits, I mean 3 bad habits. Number 1, the bad habit of turning policy and regulation into a witch hunt opportunity, where people say things we don't like and then we punish them. We ban cryptocurrency because we don't understand it. We ban Twitter because we think that there are things that need to be done the way that we want. So we need to stop that. The second is that we need to work together as multi-stakeholder groups. If there is good news coming from tech startups, if there is good news coming from certain industries, then policy needs to align and not contradict. Regulations are about standards and not control and calm down. The third, I think, which is the most important, is to encourage. At the end of the day, democracy is about a contest of ideas. I think we need to stop our bad habit of thinking that everyone who questions our actions have, maybe a hidden agenda or something like that. But let's have robust debates so that the best ideas can bubble to the surface. In the next 10 years, I do not want to have a conversation about lack of internet access in certain areas in Nigeria. We've got a universal services provision fund. What is the money being used for? I don't want to have a conversation about, we're banning this, we're banning that. If we're banning products from other countries, why are we not creating a space? And I'm not saying we should. Forget banning. Why are we not creating a space for the young innovators in our own country? Why don't we support them with policy, with regulation, so that innovation can then position us as a country that is competing globally? It's a shame that Nigeria is now on the list of countries, along with a few others, who are taking illegal action against innovation. And I think, and I hope, as the conversations have been going on, I hope that, this show of shame ends anytime soon, and that we do exactly what policy and regulation must do for a serious nation, which is to support innovation and to improve lives. Thank you, Mr. Lorundari. I look forward to the rest of the conversation.
Sharing your, this is heartwarming. Without wasting, I would like to call you to your thought on this question, please. Can help Nigerians as the potential benefits to current getting the risk and threat involved. Lead paper presenter, I believe you can pick 1 or 2 things that build your own position. Thank you very much. You have Mr. John, please. Yes, you have the.
Hi, Kunle. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Engineer Kunle, can you hear me? So I think I can't hear you very well. Please, can you take the point again, please?
Okay, I said, having listened to the lead paper presented by Mr. Gbington, I want you to put your together vis-a-vis this question. Are there policy alternatives that can help Nigerians the potential of cryptocurrency and social media risk and threats involved?
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that question. So essentially, you are speaking to whether the policy alternatives. I couldn't hear you very well, but I kind of heard a few of the things you were saying. So are there policy alternatives? I think, first of all, I want to just lend my voice to some of the comments that have been made on this particular section. I think we should. I think it's clear that between the government and also the key players in this subject or sector or industry, it's clear that there needs to be better collaboration. We need to synergize our capabilities a bit better to deliver value. What I also note is that all the stakeholders are increasingly seeing that this is very, very important. So, and I think it's important for us to recognize that there is some paradigm shift in terms of behaviors and approach. Even from a regulator standpoint, regulators are also beginning to see that they need to facilitate more collaboration and capacity building. My own thought then is that the policy alternatives for me need to also focus on that. Focus on driving collaboration where we're larger than the sum of our parts. Focus on capacity building so that the investments that we have, the limited investments that we have, sort of enable more capacity building in these areas. There are clearly benefits in cryptocurrency and social media. Therefore, these benefits need to be harnessed. And essentially, while we also look at the risks, so there are benefits and there are risks. The risks around cryptocurrency is the fact that certain transactions can actually go below the radar and can also be throttled in a manner that you can do small transactions below thresholds that add up to huge transactions for certain nefarious purposes. And of course, social media can also be a tool for influencing with negative news, essentially. But we also know there are benefits. Cryptocurrency enables a more efficient transaction capturing, recording, and consummation, and that can really be applied to so many things, including payments, KYC, identity verifications, and the likes of them. Social media is a very good tool for engaging with the masses, and clearly you can really use that to really send out the right messages. So if you balance those two benefits, my own thoughts or recommendation then is that we need to then deploy policies that really leverage its benefits. And I've spoken to two things: collaboration, capacity building, and then what we might call operational excellence, which just speaks to saying when we implement the infrastructure that drives cryptocurrency and social media, let's make them more available within our own sovereign, and let's also make sure that they are operating with best of breed practices and policies and procedures. So policies that drive that. So I said collaboration, capacity building, and operational excellence, and that's where we need to pay attention to. And then we can use that to tilt the balance more towards the potential benefits rather than just reinforcing the risks, as the case may be. So those are my own comments, Engineer Kunle.
Thank you very much, Mr. John. We appreciate your thought, and I don't want us to waste. I will definitely through the briefings later, and now I will want to pass the baton to paper and time the other two panelists, and knowing fully well much now. As a matter of fact, as we're talking right now, 59.5% on the internet, and that is say that out of this 83 billion in the world, 66.5% right of the total population of the world, and I think that is something we really need to look at. And from the look of things, some experts have said that very soon we'll start to talk about, the internet, even more than, the petroleum of this world. And I think this has come to stay. There's no gainsaying that we don't have to start thinking about the internet now. So, Madam Nkenga, I want you to share your thoughts on this question. At the same time, so how do we find agents that under national security while promoting free speech, human rights on social media? Kinga, over to you.
Thank you very much. That is Ogunlana Nkanga. So the G is actually silenced and it is N, Nkanga. Okay, no, but it's fine, it's good. Everyone does that, so I'm good. Okay, so really, I want to look at policy and regulation from another perspective. And usually when I want to have this perspective, I would always have my legal background at play. And especially as the fact that I am a digital rights lawyer and I deal usually on human rights. So now, I was listening to the minister speaking, and I've also listened to other presenters. Since morning, I've been online trying to weigh opinions, and there's something that is clear. Now, Nigeria wants to regulate the internet. You want to regulate the internet through social media platforms. You want to hold people off. You want to make policies, and then you're doing this frequently without having this mindset. I don't know if maybe the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of the Federation doesn't, maybe it's not communicating enough with these people to let them understand that no matter how you want to bring the issue of national security as your justification for any policy or regulation, you must make sure that you follow international standards in doing that. And in doing that, one thing that is clear is this: you cannot be making policies and regulations without bringing every stakeholder, every necessary important stakeholder on board. Now, bringing them on board also requires that you bring in the legal experts. You bring in people who already know about human rights, international law, and international standards, and what is required. For instance, the government cannot make policies or regulations with a mindset that it has the unfettered discretion to do so, like it did in the Twitter case. So you don't come up and say you want to suspend, and then you give your excuse as Twitter is threatening the corporate existence of Nigeria. So you give us this ambiguous response or ambiguous justification. Meanwhile, I have to say, Paradigm Initiative is one of my applicants before the ECOWAS court to litigate this Twitter case. And I'm sure that Mr. Gbenga must have gone through the defense's documents. And it was so baffling that they couldn't find a good justification for taking the kind of arbitrary action that they did on Twitter. And then they went back to our sedition laws, which are already archaic, which has already been adjudged by the Supreme Court to be unapplicable in Nigeria in a democratic dispensation. And that is what is required. Whatever actions or whatever regulations you are contemplating as a government, you must make sure that the rule of law is protected and it is promoted and it has priority. But unfortunately, it's not gonna, the rule of law will not have priority in our country as we are speaking right now, because the president himself came to a gathering of lawyers in 2018 and said it categorically that the rule of law will be suspended for national interest or national security. Meanwhile, it is the other way around in the international sphere. For instance, our National Assembly came up and decided that they wanted to make a law to regulate social media. And they came up with this protection from internet falsehood and so. Now it's called the Social Media Bill. So they came up with that. Guess what? They went to Singapore and copied a law, word for word, copy and paste, and brought it to Nigeria without considering the fact that Nigeria is a democratic society that is composed of a secular, Nigeria is a secular environment, and it's not bound by one religion or one ideology. We have different people from different ethnicity who have different cultural understanding and traditions that differ. And so when you have such a nation, I can't call it a nation. When you have such a country It shows you that you must be very careful with any kind of policy or regulation that you are proposing. Now, you don't go to the United States, who I think they say we plead the fifth, where you know that freedom of speech is sacrosanct. And then you don't go there to copy their laws to make it, work for your own country. But you go to a country where, in fact, it is not even democratic. Also, that gives you an idea that is this government really genuinely pursuing policy and regulation to protect the majority of Nigerians, or is it thinking about protecting itself and protecting its inadequacies, protecting its desire not to be accountable and transparent to the people of Nigeria? Because immediately we keep thinking about policy and regulations from the aspect of government controlling the narratives, then it becomes a problem because Nigerians cannot even tell whether your action is sincere. Now we have states in Nigeria at the moment, as I'm speaking, as I'm connecting online and being able to pass my information, we have people who cannot do the same thing. We have the Zamfara, we have the Sokoto state, we have the Katsina, and now Kaduna state, where the justification is that we are trying to fight the bandits. And so because we are fighting the bandits, we feel that it is justified in the circumstance to put people in darkness. So people don't have access to information in a pandemic. Oh, by the way, Mr. Kunle, the pandemic is still on. People are still having COVID. Now we're talking about Delta variant. Now these people are there. They don't have access to the information. They don't have access to communicate with their families. They don't have access to basic things that I can do. I can pick up my phone and call a friend and say, I am having mental breakdown. For instance, for somebody having mental health, you can't do that. So now I want to meet somebody or I want to speak to my medical doctor. I need to leave my house and then walk down the streets where in fact, they are claiming that they are trying to fight the bandits on the street. So you see, there are so many issues. Rights are violated when we think that regulation and policy should just be in the hands of government and its agencies. It is not going to be possible, because when you continue to think like that, of course, we know that the Twitter ban will always be the right example to take into consideration. The government was not thinking about its teeming youth, whom that it did not provide employment for, and who have been able to be creative enough to go on Twitter and find jobs for themselves. They are making a living online through Twitter because Twitter is a special platform on its own. But our government was not thinking about that. But the government is so quick to quote Section 45, that if you're thinking of national security, public health, public morality, please, who are the people that you are supposed to be protecting? Are we protecting a few and then leaving the majority out there in the cold? Is that what we are doing? Or when we are considering the policies we are talking about, we go there and engage the people? Do we have the National Orientation Agency, for instance, functioning in this country that is giving and supplying information enough for every person that calls him or herself a Nigerian? Are we doing that? If government is doing exactly what it should do, then it has no business to be worried about the narratives that will be out there. Rather, the criticisms that go on these platforms should be the fire that makes you to deliver. It makes you to deliver. You said, oh, it's disturbing the corporate existence. But I must say, Mr. Kule, there's a prejudice involved, because Twitter removes the president's statement or tweets on June 1st, and then on June 4, we suspend Twitter. Please, what would an ordinary man, let's look at it objectively, not even subjectively, what will an ordinary man on the street think about that? It's going to be a necessary conclusion to say that the government took a position based on the deleting of its tweets. But we come up and give all these excuses, and then we think we can go away with it, and nobody can hold us. And it's so unfortunate that the ongoing violations is still continuing. People are still shut out from Twitter. I am shut out of Twitter. I can't use my Twitter without VPN. It's very frustrating in itself. It's very frustrating in itself. And then these people in Kaduna, in all this, why are we not thinking from the human rights angle? Why? Even what's his name? I still keep, every time that this is going on and I'm seeing all these arbitrary moves from the government, what keeps coming to mind is Auschwitz. The reason why we have these human rights instruments in the first place was because of Auschwitz. But it seems that governments all over the world, including my country that calls itself a democratic country, have forgotten about Auschwitz, and it's so unfortunate. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for sharing. It's been a wonderful day, and now I call Dr. Femi Adeluyi to and at the same couple of our panelists. I want Dr. Femi Adeluyi to respond to this question. I'm going to read that. Sorry, I take that again. What are other recommendations for policy instruments that seek to promote the Internet for All agenda in Nigeria, vis-a-vis the issues raised by, the other panelists that have spoken before you? Dr. Femi, you have the floor.
Thank you. They say they save the best for the last, I hope. So good afternoon, everyone. I've been listening to the conversations of the other panelists, and I think I'll just make some comments on some of the things that have been said before addressing your question on policy. So my good friend Benga started with the lead paper, and he made some observations, which I just want to speak to. First one is about data protection bill. It's gotten to an advanced stage. I understand that it's very important for us to be able to guarantee the protection of our citizens' data. And that's what this bill is supposed to do. He had talked about an agency or an institution that will be saddled with responsibility of handling data protection. And that is one of the things that has been addressed in this bill. So we're looking forward to the bill being passed soon and being signed into law. And then we'll be able to get the benefits that we expect. Independence organizations, he spoke about that. And he said, NIDA, NIMSI, NCC, the regulatory agencies should be able to stand on their own, take decisions, make regulations without recourse to the minister or the ministry. That is not entirely accurate because we're working here as a team. I just wanted to read a section of the NCC Act to show that the minister actually has the role of policy formulation, and it's in subsection 23A of NCA 2003. It says the minister shall have the following responsibilities and functions pursuant to this act: the formulation, dissemination, and monitoring of the general policy of the communication sector. Also in subsection 25(1), it says the minister shall, in writing from time to time, notify the commission and express his views on the general policy direction of the federal government. So the minister is actually representative of the president. So his job is to ensure that policy is in alignment with what the federal government is doing. He also said something about USPF. I remember when the minister had to meet with the governors at NEC, and this question was also raised. And we did a calculation and said, even if we took the entire budget of USPF, we found that it would take a ridiculous maybe 400 years or something like that for us to be able to achieve the type of coverage that we want. So yes, USPF has a role to play, different agencies have roles to play, but we really need support from the private sector, the public sector, developmental partners and so on. For example, the Nigerian National Broadband Plan is estimated to take about $6 billion, right, to be able to implement. So I just wanted to make that comment. We spoke a lot about Twitter. Winga spoke about Twitter. Our last speaker also spoke about Twitter. And your question to me is, how can we come up with policies, that will support what the ideals of IGF are? The thing is this: if I make a comment concerning the Twitter issue, Twitter, yes, was suspended, but a lot of actions have been taken since then to try to correct the reasons for the suspension. And the last speaker had said something about the deletion of the president's tweet. Yes, that might be what some people think, but that wasn't the real reason. When you are trying to ensure that you come up with policy that will support privacy, that will support citizens to be able to connect freely to the internet, you have to balance it in a way that you don't allow that freedom to jeopardize the security of the entire country. So we found out that a number of people had used the platform for things that were affecting the security of the nation, and that's why they were suspended. But I'm happy to see that we've gone very far, and very shortly, I believe the suspension will be lifted. There's a main policy that drives what we do at the ministry, and it's the National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy for a Digital Nigeria. Is based on 8 pillars. The very first pillar, and the pillars are listed in order, almost in order of priority. So pillar number 1 is considered to be one of the most important things that we need to address to develop digital economy in Nigeria. The first one is developmental regulation. The last speaker had said something about us coming up with policies and regulations, but not involving stakeholders. And I beg to differ. There's a rulemaking process in the ministry and in the agencies of the ministry where we come up with policies, but we always have stakeholder engagements before we finalize. So all the policies we've had, we've brought in the relevant stakeholders to support in the drafting of the policy and also in the implementation. For example, the recent policy that was approved by FEC, the 5G policy, we had Altron, Atron, many people involved in the process. So we feel that regulation is called the developmental regulation pillar because we feel that regulation, even though the word on its own sounds constricting, shouldn't be constricting really. It should be towards development. So we ensure that we get people to participate. And if there are observations, always encourage people to give us those observations. And it helps us to modify the policies and the regulations. So I'll just make those few comments, and I'm sure we'll still interact more. And I can also take questions later. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adeluyi. And I want to find out if Madam Adaura is on this call. I've tried to check her out, but I'm not too sure she's here. Madam Adaura, I want to be sure she's here. If she's not here, can we move on? So I'm back to paper presenter for paper. It was heartwarming, and without wasting deliberation, how do we find a balance in insurgents that finds national security while promoting free media? I haven't listened. At the same time, Dr. will share on this question. Mr. Sheson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Londe. So maybe what I would suggest, if you don't mind, if you could type the questions, maybe not just for me, I think I made out what you said, but for others, because it's a bit difficult. Your audio keeps going in and out. Oh my God. No, it's fine, it's fine. If you can just share the text, that would be very helpful. But I think I heard what you said, and I'll speak to it. So you've raised some of the comments that Femi made, and by the way, for those, I'm sure this may be a surprise to many people. Femi and I were in the same class, elect in Ife. So it's always great to have this debate, this contest of ideas, because the goal is the same. The goal is to make sure that we develop this sector. We may not agree on some things. For example, I do not agree 100% that the reason for suspension of Twitter was not the ego of Mr. President and Mr. Mohammed. It absolutely is, and there's a lot of role that NSAS played in that. But also to your question of how do we create a balance. Three key things. Number one, like I said earlier, the multi-stakeholder nature of the IGF is a principle that we need to adopt in Nigeria. I heard Femi say earlier that the ministry consults various stakeholders. I mean, yes, we know that happens. There are times when, my organization has even been invited to some of these conversations. But I think the real problem is that government has a terrible attitude of assuming that it is working as daddy and citizens are children. And we hear this said all the time. And I think, unfortunately, we also enable this. For example, I was absolutely upset that the minister was late and we kept waiting for him and we're not doing anything. I think we should have gone ahead. If there was a schedule problem, then he can come in, and give his speech later, because it is not a government meeting where protocol has to be observed. It's a multi-stakeholder meeting. And I think this is one of the challenges and attitude that government needs to change. The attitude needs to be that it is not like we have made up minds on what to do and we now start looking for excuses to give for it. For example, my colleague Mujirayo mentioned earlier, many of the states in Nigeria where the telecom services have been shut down, now the reason that's been given is security reasons. But we can trace all of these things. We were told by the ministry, if you register SIM cards, Nigeria will be safe. There'll be no kidnapping. We've done that. Still kidnapping. In fact, there is more. Said if you connect to NIN, which I haven't deliberately done, and I'm waiting for my phone to be cut off October 31. It hasn't helped. Now we're shutting down network, network services. And don't forget, many of these insurgents are buying SIM cards from neighboring countries. Many of them have gadgets you have no control over. So this is where the principles of legality, proportionality, and necessity come in. Is it really necessary to shut down a platform or to shut down telecom services because we want to solve a problem? Because many times what we do is create another problem in the name of solving a problem. But if indeed we work together, many of the institutions in Nigeria, some of them civil society, have actually been working on solving the twin problems of hate speech and fake news way before governments are using it as an excuse. And I say this, if we want to start punishing those who have done hate speech and fake news in Nigeria, the first of the people to go to jail, some of them are governors right now, some of them are ministers. So if we really want to solve those problems, we have to work together and respect each other, not coming into the room assuming I have the solution, I'm the emperor, you are the others I have to listen to me. That's one. The second is that government must be proactive in disclosures. Many times, my organization, Paradigm Initiative, has had to send, freedom of information requests to the NCC, to NITA, and I think a few to the ministry to ask questions about things that should be publicly available. For example, I think by now, the ministry or the NCC particularly, and this is why I speak of independent institutions, I appreciate the minister's role, but the minister's role, as the law stipulates there, is not to demand and say this is what has to be done. Because right now, what we've seen is that the minister at times has tweeted that NCC attend to this. Now, that is not the way that relationship should be. We should have seen, for example, a memo from the NCC explaining that this is the reason why we had to shut down telecom services in these locations. We've explored all others. Don't forget the principles of necessity and proportionality. Is it proportional? Is it necessary? Have we compared? Have we done other things? What happens in Nigeria? And I should know, by the way, having been a guest of the SSF a few times myself, security agencies in Nigeria are very forceful. They will come to you and tell you this is what you need to do. Institutions need to push back. Once in a while, the minister, the NCC, NITA, they need to tell the security agencies, this may look like the immediate solution, but will be causing more problems. Because you are the experts, for God's sake. You are the experts, not them. They are security experts. You are telecom experts. Nigeria is bleeding telecom investment. And I want to be corrected on that. Nigeria is bleeding numbers. We have lost consistently over the last 4 months the number of phone users. That also has reflected in revenue. The two sectors that saved Nigeria from a recession are our sector, ICT, and agriculture. Meanwhile, many of our policies literally contradict. I know how many investor conversations I've had, and they have said things about, let's know when you are sure of direction you want to go. We want broadband investment. I think Femi mentioned $8 billion. That $8 billion is not going to come to this country if we keep somersaulting around policy. And I think it's really important that we understand that we need to make up our minds. Do we want to be the nation that focuses on the climate of fear because of security? Or do we want to be the nation that, yes, we have security problems, but we will work in a way that will not create additional problems? There's a reason, and I'll close with this, why everyone was talking about, bringing the lockdowns to an end during COVID-19. Were people to die if people went back to work? Were people going to fall ill and things like that? Yes. But there was a conversation about health and the economy. And those are the kind of conversations we need to have in Nigeria when it comes to security. You need to take security side by side with the economy. And I submit that if the government of Nigeria changed its attitude, spent less time focusing on banning what it doesn't understand, crypto today, people's accounts closed tomorrow, open fire on citizens protesting another day. If we stop that and spend more time and more energy on doing our work, security will improve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chesson. We appreciate your thought that you have shared. Hello, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to be sure we're on the same page. Yes, thank you very much. So I'll be going to Madam Nkanya, Bujichola Nkanya. So I want you to share your thoughts on this question. I haven't listened to Dr. Adeluyi. So I want you to share your own thoughts about what are other recommendations for policy instruments that seek to promote the internet for all agenda in Nigeria. Madam Mujurayo, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Or do you want me to chat? Okay.
No, please repeat the question.
What are other recommendations for policy instruments that seek to promote the interest for all agenda in Nigeria? Talking about internet for all. Talking about the interest of everyone in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so as we speak now, I can tell you that the focus really from the government that I have been able to observe is that the government has focused so much on trying to, it says, I want to regulate the social media. The Minister of Information was in Washington, and then he still said the same thing. He said, I want to regulate the social media. I believe that the government should remove its focus from the fact that, oh, we want to, yes, we don't want false statements, we don't want false news. You already have laws. You already have laws that are already addressing all this. So as Mr. Chesson rightly said, if you are providing the necessary infrastructure, you are providing the necessary, you are providing the right governance, you will see that less will be discussed about security. And now, if you're talking about, if you want to decide on your policies, right, it's important for you to be able to put into consideration that you have a lot of, I can't put figures to it because I'm not a statistics person, a lot of youths out there. There are too many out there. And then we've seen their brilliance expressed in quotes, in the internet frauds, for instance, those who commit cyber crimes, for instance. We have seen them, that they are that intelligent. So why we spend so much time running after young people and running after the entirety of Nigeria? Don't let me say young people alone, because we are all in this together. Bring these young people, bring them on board, whatever decisions you're making. Bring our ideas, our innovations. And interestingly, I'm happy that Mr. Chesson also mentioned the fact that we should be having this multi-stakeholder discussion before we think about policies, right? Then, of course, please, the government has to stop with the executive orders. You can't continue to go out there and then you say you have your executive weapon, you can use it at every point in time. By exercising that, we have seen a situation where the judiciary itself in Nigeria is coward because a government went after the judiciary. It's there, it's in the news, it's not something that is hidden. Meanwhile, the executive should be able to go through checks from the judiciary. But are we really seeing that happen? Are we seeing that happen? For instance, the case on the social media bill has been before the Federal High Court since 2020. And this is, was it 2020 or 2019? And the matter is still adjourned to October. And then I've noticed that the last two adjournments is always the same issue. There's always an adjournment. So when I'm going there in October, rather than for hearing, I'm thinking in my head that it's probably going to be an adjournment because people, even judiciary, the judiciary cannot even come out and perform its functions the way it should do it because the government has come out to be the, should I say, the Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator in this circumstance. You have become the one that, you know, everybody is afraid of. Meanwhile, in your directions, in your taking actions, you should be thinking about the people themselves. You are representing the people, not yourself. You are representing the people. And so the people matter. They really do matter in the sense, of course, there's always also the issue that we have a National Assembly that I have not seen so far, in my estimate, has been able to stand in opposition to the executive in the sense that, oh no, you are taking this action, it is wrong. I haven't seen that. I've seen a National Assembly that says, okay, yes, okay, let's pat you on the back. That is not how a democracy works. It is not how democracy works. Everybody has to work in line with the issue, the main facts on ground, that this is a democratic society. So whenever we are thinking of policies and regulations, we should think about the people. The people are the ones with the power. And so we must not exercise unfettered discretion. I heard Mr. Is it Femi? Yes, he was saying something about, oh, don't worry, we are thinking, we had the people and we had the people in mind when we were thinking about our policies. In fact, we talked about with stakeholders. How many Nigerians really know about all these things? Are we exposing our information? Are we putting out everything out there for the public to know? We have a lot of people that are even uneducated. I can't use the uneducated. They are illiterate about the internet and its workings. And so I was so proud that a judge at the Federal High Court, Taiwo could come up and say that, oh, I am not going to sentence this guy to 3 years, 5 years, or anything. It's obvious that this guy that committed this cybercrime is suffering from ignorance. The judge came to that conclusion and said this man needs to be reorientated. That is the way we should look at it. Look at orientation. Let your policy be from orientation. Let it be that we are spending more time educating the members of the public rather than going for criminalization. It doesn't work like that. If you want a people that will support the government, then we should think about the people first, rather than protecting the few in government. If we continue to do, or if we continue along the lines that we are doing, we are not going to quench the fire that we have already started. And so when the government also came out and said, oh, and broadcasting stations don't broadcast so things because we don't want you to cause embarrassment to the nation. You are telling the journalists, for instance, not to do its work. Its work is to publish facts, information, the right things that people should know, that people should be able to participate in their government. And how do we participate in our government? We hear the news and then we interact over the different platforms that we have. And then we talk and then we decide and come up with, oh, this is it, this is what we should do. Then when we are discussing on these platforms, I would think that a reasonable government will look at the discussions, for instance, going on all over these social media platforms, and from there be able to fashion out a way to serve its people better. Not cut them out arbitrarily. I keep mentioning arbitrarily. You don't cut them out. By cutting them out, you have not solved the issue on ground. And then we think that bandits are in quotes, you call them bandits. If you can pick a journalist and charge him for terrorism, I want to believe that bandits are terrorists. Now, if you are thinking that terrorists needs all these communications just to do what they have to do, then it means that a lot of people have not, the Nigerian government have not been sending people to have terrorism education or how would I put it, to be trained in courses on terrorism. I happen to have taken cases on terrorism, and I know that it's possible for terrorists to commit outside your usual telecommunications infrastructure, and they will do exactly what they have to do. And so we need to think about, I would emphasize, and I emphasize again, think about the people. Let the people have the right to freedom of expression. Make sure that the interventions you are making is the least intrusive. That is what the United Nations said. Make sure that the instruments or your intervention or interference on these rights is the least intrusive, the least. Compare it, weigh it, what other measures can be taken before we do this? So when you're thinking about policies, think about the least intrusive. Think about what is necessary in a democratic society. Think about what is proportionate. And then maybe the country would understand you better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mujurayo. That was really heartwarming. So without wasting time, Mr. John, I think I sent a chat to you earlier. So I want you to share your thoughts on the same question. What are other recommendations for policy instruments that seek to promote the internet for all agenda in Nigeria? And please, could you do that in 3 minutes? Because we don't really have much time again. Thank you, Mr. John, and thank you for your understanding. Mr. John, over to you. Is Madam Mudara in the house?
Thank you very much, Engineer Lauren Dare. Please, can you take that question again, please?
All right. The question is, what other recommendations for policy instruments that seek to promote the internet for all agenda in Nigeria? Could you share your thoughts on that question, please? I haven't listened to other panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And yes, I think my own thoughts, I think I'll just I'll keep it very brief and summarized. I think, policy instruments, what we're doing in the data protection space is a key one. And I know that it's gone through some levels of reading, but I just want to say that that's one area that we need to conclude very quickly, because data protection, data privacy is a major area of making the internet, of promoting the internet for all agenda. People need to be able to use internet resources, knowing that their data protection rights have been properly catered for by the various stakeholders. So that's one major one. I think that's one I'll pick to. I mean, I can also pick to policy instruments around cyber security. Also, I think just making them more up to date. The internet evolution in the last 18 months have been significant, compared to even the last 3 to 4 years, as the case may be. So making our cybersecurity policies more up to date, and then more importantly, communicating it strategically to the various stakeholders, both at the MDA level and bringing it to the grassroots. Sometimes we update these policies, but the effort around communication and making sure that the right people get those information is very, very critical. So strategic communication should be a key element in our policies and a major policy instrument as well. So I will just stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. John Anyanwu. We have less than 7 minutes to go, and we still have to wrap up this session. So I will want Dr. Adeluyi to respond to key issues that have been raised by the last 2 panelists who have spoken. Dr. Adeluyi, Would you want to respond to the panelists?
Yes, actually, when I spoke the first time, I'd spoken about a number of the things. Let me make a comment about what the panelists said about us not, reaching out to other arms of government when we perceive that, they're working against our purposes. And I would like to say that that's really not the case. So even though we don't come out to let the public know what we're doing, in many cases, we reach out directly to the other government agencies and tell them that, the policies they're coming up with or things that we perceive will not support digital economy should be revised. But in some of the cases, we come out and say it to the public. Let me give you one instance. Probably late 2019 or sometime in 2020, there was this issue of Yahoo boys and how many of the security agencies seemed to feel that young people with laptops were just men that they were Yahoo boys. And we reached out to the police, we reached out to the security agencies. They even came out with a press statement saying that, these things do not support the digital economy. These things do not help us to achieve what we have said we will achieve in the national digital economy policy and strategy. So yes, we reach out to them. And in the case of stakeholder engagement, the second to last speaker has spoken about the fact that, we're not reaching out to everybody. The truth is that we cannot reach out to everybody directly. And that's why we reach out to organizations that represent common interests that are relevant to what we're working on. And that's why I give examples of Alton, AdCon. In fact, my friend Gbenga Sheson had spoken that we have invited them a couple of times. And even if people are not part of the committees that were set up for the policies and regulations, we always we make it open to the public and people can submit things to us about what they feel should be amended in policy. And really, we look through all of them. And those that we deem to have merit, we include. So I don't want the private sector or the NGOs to feel that the government is not willing to integrate and collaborate with them, where we see ourselves as one body, we see ourselves as being part of one team. And the success of the digital economy is a success for all of us. Gbenga talked about the minister coming late and he had to wait. It's not exactly as it looks because we communicated to the organizers and said he'll be available from 2:30 because of the meeting that took place at NCC today. The computer security incidents response team was being launched. And by the time he came back, he said there was just a break before the next session and he could join. So on his behalf, I apologize if he felt slighted that there was a delay. And so those are the comments that I want to make. I'll be happy to talk about any other things that you think I've left out. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Adeluyi. Our time is fast spent. We don't really have much time again, so I will want to wrap up this session. The lead paper presenter, Mr. Gbenga Sheson, during the presentation, mentioned the good news about the e-Naira and that it is a welcome idea. He talked about the data protection bill that is ongoing in the assembly. And he also made mention of the fact that, issues to be addressed should include abuse. And the issue of digital rights and freedom bill too, he mentioned that. Apart from that, he talked about the Twitter ban and of course the network disruption in some part of the country, and that there is need for multi-stakeholderism arrangement in solving some of the policy and regulatory issues in the internet ecosystem. Then Mr. John mentioned the need for the use of best grade policy, and that should be done in collaboration with the stakeholders. And Madam Mujishola in a speech mentioned the fact that we should try as much as possible to follow international best practice in making policies and regulations, and that rule of law must be protected in all our dealings, then that people should be able to communicate seamlessly. Then Dr. Adeluyi, in his own speech, mentioned the fact that, yes, the data protection bill is at advanced stage, and in no time it will be wrapped up. He also talked about the engagement of private sector in the internet ecosystem when it comes to making rules and regulations. And he cited example of what was done not quite too long. And Mr. Chesson, when he came back, he told us about government must be proactive in giving information, and the government must work together with all stakeholders. Then Madam Muji, when she came back, she mentioned the fact that young people need to be carried along. And Mr. John mentioned the issue of data protection and privacy, that government should expedite action on that. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've had a wonderful session, and it's been, a very good one. I want to appreciate all our panelists and all our listeners. Thank you. Okay, 8 minutes extra. All right. Thank you very much. But before we go, I want to open the floor now. And if any of our participants has any question to ask our panelists, this is the time to ask your question. Please raise up your hand. I've actually put up a note on the chat that if you want to ask a question, you can do so. Thank you. We're leaving the breakout session. I'm sorry, I think the breakout session is closed now. So if you have questions, please bring it to the light room where it's going to be answered. Thank you very much for participating in this session. Thank you very much, our panelists. We appreciate all of you for sharing your thoughts, and it's been a wonderful one, and we hope to have this another time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And please, let's meet in the large room.
Thank
now,
you, Engineer Kunle Olorundare. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you.
Hello, moderator. Hello, Mr. Moderator. This is Martha speaking. Hello, moderator. This is Martha speaking.
Thank you.